Don't be apologetic when God pulls you out of the usual environments and puts you where you need to be. Don't be disappointed in that, and don't allow yourself to be pulled back into anything. One thing that we have to realize as we are human beings, you look at your you look at your image in the mirror and you may see black, white, Asian, Native American, Spanish, European, whatever, right? That's what you see. But that's your earth suit. Who you are on the inside has no race, creed, nationality. No, you're a spirit. And a spirit has no body. When Jesus was crucified and he rose from the dead, some of you may or may not believe this, but that is what I believe. And I will have to share my testimony another day, which I've shared in the past, of the reality of who God is, as I've experienced the reality of darkness tangibly, and I've experienced the Lord. So bear with me for those of you who may not necessarily believe this aspect. But when Jesus rose from the dead and he was walking with his disciples who had been with him for some time, they didn't recognize him. They were talking with him and all of that, but they did not know who he was. The same thing that when Martha went looking for his body to put, the burial oils and things on the body, Jesus stood there and was talking to her, and she thought he was the gardener, and she was saying, "Where is Jesus?" because she saw the tomb was empty. So it took a bit of time before Jesus actually revealed to her who he was. What am I saying? I believe that when we are in our spiritual form, who you look like in the mirror is not who you are. And who you are is going to be different from what we recognize. So therefore, when God deals with us, he's not dealing with you as a black person, a white person, an Asian person, whatever. There are things and tasks and things that he may give you to do that people in your own race and culture will say, well, why are you doing that? Why are you behaving like that? Just like there are plenty of black people, myself included, being around other black people, there may be interest in things that you do and the way that you think that's very different from what other in your group may think. You may be a white person, you have a way to think and look at people in your culture, and those who look like you are saying, well, why do you think that way? Why you listen to this? Why do you have that mindset? Why do you have this interest? And it can cause division sometimes. But when God tells you to do something, and he sets you on a path to do certain things, sometimes whether you believe in God or not, you're on a path. He puts you to do certain things because God can utilize whoever he wants to utilize to do his will. Okay? But I want to say that don't allow yourself to be held in a certain position because you're not supposed, according to your culture and your background, this is not the norm. According to your culture and your background, this is all you can be. This is all you can do because of your family last name and how you guys were raised and what your dad and your mom did and what you're known for. It keeps you from doing what God has called you to do. God is not concerned about your last name. He's not concerned about who in your family been in jail and prison. He's not concerned about that. He's looking at you as a spirit. I've sent you into this world to do something specific that goes beyond your creed, your race, your culture, your nationality, your language, or your past. I need you to do this. Let's get to it. And sometimes what will happen is you're going to find yourself being ostracized and being mistreated by the majority because you are not following the rules. You're not following the norms. You're not talking like the rest of us. What is your problem? And one of the hardest things for people is to actually stand alone. A lot of people are not comfortable standing alone. It's easier to just conform to what everybody else is doing and saying That's just the best thing for them. Like, okay, it's this is getting hard. I've seen people like that. I see some people like that on the news or in the media, and they're speaking out, and I think it's so rare, even if sometimes they're not necessarily saying things that I agree with. I admire that they are actually strong. Okay, they're actually strong, and they stand strong, and that's actually an attribute, a virtue that comes from God. Now, if it's used for evil, that's bad. But when people are standing up for what's right and for people, that is a good thing. When they stand on what's right, despite doing right things, things that's morally and ethically correct, despite the majority, that is to be admired. And that can be hard for some people. But if you continue to move forward and do what God calls you to do, you're going to find the strength, because you're only going to be stronger when you face resistance. I don't like running. I hate running, but I do. Okay. And what I realize is when I first do it, I feel like I'm dying. I remember the very first time I was running in the military, I felt like I was literally going to pass away. Okay. I think my childhood flashed before my very eyes. I felt like I wanted to throw up. I think I did throw up. It was an ugly sight. But when you keep running and you keep facing that thing, eventually I wasn't throwing up and feeling like I was going to die, feel like my heart was going to burst. What happens is your body realizes, okay, this is what we're doing, and it follows suit. You become conditioned. And before I knew it, I was running faster and faster and faster and faster until I was moving. I used to be in the military. When we run, you got your fast group up front, then your second next group, blah blah blah. Well, the first group was called the road runners. I mean, they are running, okay? And I went from being in the slow group and kept going up, 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 up to when I'm in with the road runners running. And then we're running, and we're normally the first ones back. Once we get our run done, we get back and we're showering and all that stuff before the rest of the formation comes up. Okay. So, what I'm saying is the only way you're going to know that you're strong is when you face the resistance. Okay. If I was like, no, I can't do it, and I just stayed there, I would never know that I could actually run. Despite your color, your race, your creed, your nationality, your cultural affiliations, there are going to be times that God's going to pull you out of all of that and place you somewhere different. One of the things that I do find out a lot, and I would say this in the black culture, is that sometimes people get mad when a black person, they're looking at you and saying, well, you should be around us, when that black person is not around a bunch of other black people, but is in fact find themselves being around white people or people of other nationalities and not their own. Well, sometimes there are people, yes, it is true that there are some black people, they go over to the white side, or they want to be around white people because they hate black people. And then they go around there and they're telling them all kinds of evil things about black people, as if they're the last of the Mohicans. I always say, you go over there and you talking about black people and how black men and black women are this way, you have already marked yourself down by about 85 to 90%. Okay? You are not the last of Mohican. If you're intelligent and you're doing the right thing, there are other intelligent black people like yourself. So stop talking nonsense. But I digress. What I'm simply saying here is there are people who just go to, let's say, a black person going over to be with a white person or Spanish person or whatever, be based on self-hatred. Okay. And so they go there and they talk all this craziness and just basically just bring their value down significantly. I'm not talking about those individuals, and those people have to figure themselves out and cut out that nonsense. I'm talking about those of you, you don't hate black people, you don't have any animosity, but what God does, he begins to bring you, probably from a young age, you begin to realize you're actually perhaps not accepted among your culture for whatever reason, because of your interest, because of your music, right? You like to listen to different types of music, you have different interests, and you find yourself being lonely. But well, there's a purpose in that. So what happens is you end up finding yourself being around different kinds of individuals who don't look like you, but you have things in common. Okay, because you're like it's not about your skin color, it's not about your culture, but you are similar in spirit. And so your mindset is different. And that's why you end up being in this group of people. So there you find sometimes black people are mad at other black people. Well, why are you over here? Why ain't you dating this person? Why are you married this person? Why didn't you marry your brother? Why didn't you marry a black woman? Because that was not that person's destiny. This person who's white or Asian or whatever, that's who they were destined to be with. It has nothing to do with their color, but that their spirit are aligned, and that's who God has for them. The same thing. There are people who your culture and what people say statistically, you're not supposed to achieve certain things, but it's not about what people say in your neighborhood and who your father is and whatever. When God places something in you, you're going to be doing things that is going to surpass what society say or where society say you should be and how far society says you should go. You're going to go beyond that because God is not looking at your skin tone and your color. He's not looking at your gender. He's saying, I've called you to do this specific thing. It's just people who they've gone through some horrible things in their lives and God pulled them right out and put them in a different place. And people are going, well, what are you doing here? What are you doing over there? You should be down here with us. No, God put them up here. And whether they're sitting at the table with great men and women, or they're sitting or standing in front of these individuals, being the voice and giving counsel and giving guidance. God can do these things because He feels like it and He can, because He does not look at you as a black person. He does not look at you as a white person. He's not looking at you as that guy that your dad did horrible things, or you are the greens, and the greens are all washed up, low down folks, and you guys are, the Ficenzis. You guys are known for having this type of behavior. You have this reputation, so I can't use you. God does not look at anything like that. And the way I know that is when that centurion came to him and asked him to heal his servant. God, the Lord Jesus, was not concerned with him being a centurion. Being a centurion will mean he's a Roman. Um, and the Romans, if I'm not mistaken, they were, them and the Jews were not the best pals. Actually, the Jews during those times were subject to the Romans. They had different beliefs about things. Okay? They were not following Jesus Christ. But the Lord God was not looking at him showing up in the form of a Jew, Jesus being in the form of a Jew, and, oh, you're a Roman. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I can only help my people. Besides, are you baptized? Have you accepted the Lord? Do you believe in my Father? He didn't do that. He knew he had come to do his Father's business. So healing the centurion's servant was a non-issue, because who the centurion was dealing with was a son of God that came in flesh, who had a purpose that went beyond cultural differences and barriers and even religious beliefs and convictions. And that is one thing, guys, you've got to learn. Don't allow barriers and don't allow people to tell you you can only go so far, and you can only do this much, and you're only allowed to do this, and you can only marry these types of men, you can only marry these women. What are you doing over there with them white people? What are you doing over there with these black people? What are you doing over there with this? Why did you go and do this? Why are you living in Africa? Why did you move over there? You do what you're led to do. And when you take those first steps, God will do the rest. God has an ironic way of not showing you the full picture. He just says, take this first step. And that first step looks like, what step? There is no step. But God's like, there is a step. You need to take it. When you take that step in faith, then that step will manifest under your feet. And the next, and the next, and the next. God has not seen race and creed and culture. And He will elevate you. He will take you to places that you never thought you would be. If it is desire that you marry, you may marry a person that looks like you and of your culture, but he may also have you marry a person that does not look anything like you and you have a different cultural background. He'll have you working for and working with and even directing people that does not look like you. He takes you out the comfort zone. And never think that you don't belong there. And when you're there, you ask God to lead you every step of the way, that you do not allow pride, you do not allow fear, you do not allow whatever your personal biases to affect where you are and to dictate what you're going to do moving forward. I hope this video makes sense to someone, and I hope I've helped somebody. And yeah, that's all I have, guys. God bless.